Iceland, the land named Ice, is actually lush and green. Meanwhile, Greenland, our so-called green land, is essentially one giant, stark, white block of ice. This was arguably the very first marketing scam in human history, pulled off by a Viking named Eric the Red over 1,000 years ago. He discovered a desolate, frigid wasteland and gave it a beautiful name solely to lure others into moving there with him. And the reality of this land is even crazier than its name suggests. Greenland is 3 times the size of France. It is so vast that you could fly over it for hours without seeing an end to it. But within that vast area, the population density is unbelievably illogical. While France has a population of around 68 million, all of Greenland is home to a mere 56,000 people. That is roughly the population of a small French provincial town like Vannes or Narbonne. Welcome to the loneliest yet most majestic place on the planet. When we talk about the cold, most people think of temperature. We think of a winter day in Chicago or a ski trip in Colorado. But in Greenland, the cold is not just a number on a thermometer. The cold here is a massive physical entity, a geological force that is tectonically shaping and reshaping the Earth's surface every single day. To understand this intuitively, we must go to Ilulissat and Disco Bay. This is a place where human perception of scale is completely deceived. Standing on the deck looking out at the bay, you see white blocks of ice floating on the water. There are no trees, no houses, no familiar objects to serve as reference points. Your eyes tell you that those icebergs are only the size of a school bus or a suburban house. But in reality, they are miles away from you, and their size can be equivalent to the Empire State Building. In Ilulissat, these massive icebergs carve from the ice sheet. They can reach a height of up to 100 meters from the water's surface to the top, comparable to the Statue of Liberty. But what is truly terrifying is what lies beneath. According to Archimedes' principle, the density of ice is about 10% lighter than seawater. This means we are seeing only 10% of the iceberg. The other 90%, a colossal mass of matter weighing millions of tons, lurks beneath the surface. This is why ships in these waters must always maintain an absolute safety distance. A minor shift in the center of gravity can cause the iceberg to capsize, releasing impact energy strong enough to sink any modern vessel. So, where does this gigantic mass of material come from? They come from the Nuuk Glacier, also known as the Jakobshavn Glacier. This is not a river in the conventional sense. Picture it as a giant industrial conveyor belt. While most glaciers in the world move at a glacial pace of just a few meters per year, Nuuk is an exception to nature. It moves at an average speed of 40 meters per day. This speed and scale make it the largest discharge glacier in the Northern Hemisphere. Every year, this single glacier pushes between 35 and 50 billion tons of ice into the ocean. To visualize this figure, if we took all that ice and spread it evenly over Manhattan, New York, it would bury the entire city, including its tallest skyscrapers, under a layer of ice more than 300 meters thick. Or, in terms of water resources, the amount of fresh water this glacier discharges into the sea annually is enough to supply the entire population of the United States for that same period. This glacier also holds a special place in maritime history. Based on data regarding Atlantic currents, researchers believe that the iceberg that struck and sank the Titanic in 1912 originated from Nuuk itself. It broke off here, drifted thousands of miles south, and caused the most famous tragedy of the 20th century. When we look at this glacier, we are looking at a natural machine capable of impacting human history. Beyond physical scale, Greenland also challenges human biological limits through light. In the summer, at high latitudes north of the Arctic Circle, the midnight sun phenomenon occurs. Because the Earth's axis is tilted 23.5 degrees toward the sun, this region receives continuous sunlight for 24 hours. Here, the sun does not set. At 2 a.m., the sky is as bright as high noon in California. The sun merely follows a low parabolic curve near the horizon and then rises again. This phenomenon creates profound and direct biological effects on the human body. Biologically, humans are programmed to operate on a circadian rhythm, an internal 24-hour clock regulated by light and darkness. Under normal conditions, when the sun sets, darkness sends a signal to the brain to produce melatonin, a hormone acting as a switch, indicating it is time to sleep. But in Greenland during the summer, this switch is completely disabled. Continuous light hits the retina, tricking the brain into thinking it is still daytime. As a result, the body continues to pump cortisol and adrenaline hormones that generate energy and alertness instead of melatonin. This leads to a unique psychosocial state. Social rhythm shifts into a freestyle mode. It is not rare to see 10-year-olds playing soccer or riding bikes in the street at 1 a.m. Construction sites may operate all night, and hunters or fishermen utilize this 24-hour vision to head out whenever they feel convenient. People fall into a state of prolonged euphoria. They sleep less, often only 4 to 5 hours a day, yet still feel overflowing with energy. However, to maintain health in this environment, Greenlanders must learn to create an artificial night. Here, blackout curtains are not interior decoration, they are essential medical equipment. Many people even use foil to seal their bedroom windows to block absolutely every photon of light, forcing the brain to accept that it is time to rest. This adaptation is the clearest testament to human resilience. We can rewrite our own biological rules to survive in places where nature refuses to follow the standard laws. Finally, we must talk about the sound of climate change. Greenland is not silent. It is violently loud. At the Eki Glacier area, about 80 kilometers north of Ilulissat, visitors can witness and hear the process of calving. The sound here is frequently compared to rolling thunder or cannon fire. When the compression pressure exceeds the structural limit of the ice, cracks appear. A slab of ice the size of a 20-story apartment building will detach from the ice cliff and collapse into the sea. This collision creates water columns shooting hundreds of meters into the air and triggers massive waves spreading across the bay. In recent decades, the frequency of these explosions has become much denser. According to data from NASA and climate monitoring organisations, the rate of melting and calving in Greenland is accelerating. The roaring at Eki is not just the sound of nature operating, it is an alarm siren for global temperature change. In summary, nature in Greenland operates on a scale beyond ordinary imagination. Icebergs the size of skyscrapers, glaciers that could bury Manhattan, and sunlight that never fades. Here, humans are not conquerors. Humans are merely tiny creatures trying to adapt alongside massive geological forces. After witnessing the overwhelming scale of nature, the next logical question anyone must ask is, how can humans possibly exist here? Not merely surviving in a primitive sense, but operating a modern society complete with Wi-Fi, coffee shops, and a fully functional political system right on the edge of the Arctic Circle. To find the answer, we must travel to Nuuk, one of the most peculiar and illogical capital cities in the world. Demographically, Nuuk holds fewer than 20,000 people. By American standards, this equals a sleepy township in rural Ohio or Nebraska. But do not let that number deceive you. Functionally, it bears the silhouette of a true metropolis. Instead of sprawling low-rise suburban wooden houses, what strikes you are looming reinforced concrete blocks. Apartment buildings rising 10 stories high stand tall, pressed directly against dark, sheer rock cliffs. Right beside them are bustling shopping malls, a university, and government buildings. This contrast is stark and absurd. On one side, modern 21st century high-rise architecture. Just steps away, a barren, untamed wilderness that has remained unchanged for thousands of years. However, the scale of this capital remains incredibly diminutive. A fun fact best illustrates this. The entire city of Nuuk possesses exactly 2 sets of traffic lights. In fact, locals often joke that they were installed primarily to teach learner drivers what traffic lights look like, rather than to actually regulate traffic. Here, the urban pulse is not dictated by rush hour or gridlock, but by blizzards and visibility. The greatest challenge of living in Greenland lies not within the cities, but in moving between them. This is the only place on Earth that hosts a transportation infrastructure paradox. The nation has no connecting road network. Picture this. You live in New York and want to go to Washington, D.C. The geographical distance isn't too far, but there are no interstate highways, no train tracks, and no roads whatsoever. That is the exact reality in Greenland. Despite being 3 times the size of France, the total length of all roads on the island combined is shorter than the internal tarmac system of a major international airport. The roads exist only within town limits and terminate the moment they touch the boundary of the wilderness. So how does logistics operate? Greenlanders travel via a system they call the aerial highway. Helicopters and small propeller planes are the primary public transport. Air Greenland functions like a bus service in the sky, hopping from one town to another. This drives the cost of living to astronomical levels. A domestic round-trip ticket to visit family in a neighbouring town can cost as much as a flight from the US to Europe. In the more remote regions of the north and east, when winter arrives and the sea freezes over, people revert to the most primal mode of transport, dog sledding. Here, the Greenland dog is not a pet. They are working animals, or more accurately, biological engines. A sled with a team of 12 dogs is the only vehicle guaranteeing survival when temperatures drop below minus 30 degrees Celsius, where mechanical engines can fail or fuel can gel. Greenlandic law even strictly regulates the protection of this breed's gene pool. North of the Arctic Circle, you're not allowed to bring in foreign dog breeds to prevent crossbreeding. The dog sled is not a tourist symbol. It is the Inuits' pickup truck. The most extreme adaptation, however, lies not in how they travel, but in what they eat. The traditional Inuit diet in Greenland is a subject of controversy and the biggest culture shock for Westerners. We are talking about a land with no arable soil. No wheat, no greens, no fruit trees. According to standard FDA nutritional pyramids, humans need vegetables for vitamins and fibre. So why have the Inuit lived here for thousands of years without contracting scurvy? The answer lies in the Inuit paradox. They derive vitamin C directly from the skin and raw organs of animals. One of the most critical dishes, and the hardest for outsiders to accept, is mattak. This is raw whale skin, usually beluga or bowhead, attached to a thick layer of blubber. It is eaten raw. Nutritional studies indicate that whale skin contains extremely high levels of vitamin C, even higher than oranges. For Greenlanders, this is not a delicacy. It is the survival multivitamin that gets them through the harsh winter. But the pinnacle of culinary adaptation has to be kiviak. What you're about to learn about this dish is not for the faint of heart. We encourage viewers to look into it themselves. However, do not let these dishes lead you to believe that Greenlanders are cold or barbaric. On the contrary, society here is built on incredibly tight-knit community bonds, best expressed through the culture of Qafamik. In an environment dominated by blizzards and darkness outside, human warmth is the most precious resource. Qafamik is not simply drinking coffee. It is a social institution. When a family has good news, a birthday, a child's first tooth, or a confirmation, they throw open their doors. No invitations are needed. Anyone in town, from friends and neighbours to strangers just walking by, is welcome. The rules of Qafamik are simple. You walk in, take off your shoes, drink a cup of coffee, eat a piece of cake, chat for 15 to 20 minutes, and then leave to make room for others. The house becomes an emotional transit hub. In Nuuk, during a Qafamik day, a small house might host 50 to 100 guests. This is how Greenlanders combat isolation and winter depression. They turn privacy into community sharing. Qafamik reminds everyone that no matter how brutal nature is outside, inside these concrete walls, no one is left alone. From the sky-high transport system and fermented animal dishes to coffee parties open to strangers, everything points to one truth. Life in Greenland is not a war against nature. It is a life flowing with nature. They accept the physical limits of this land and have built a civilization based on absolute adaptation. But modern civilization was not the first to try its hand here. Before them, there was another civilization, powerful and warlike, that settled here and then mysteriously vanished. Their ruins still scatter the south, telling a cautionary tale of collapse. Let us travel back in time to investigate the disappearance of the Vikings. Leaving behind the rotor noise of helicopters and the concrete blocks of Nuuk, let's head to the south. Here, the landscape shifts. The ice recedes, giving way to deep green pastures and tranquil fjords. But hidden beneath that serenity is the crime scene of one of the most mysterious disappearances in human history. We are standing before the Hvalsey Church. Gaze upon these grey granite walls. They have stood firm for 6 centuries, solitary amidst the desolate meadow. This is not the handiwork of the indigenous Inuit. This is medieval European architecture. More precisely, it is a Viking legacy. Most of us know the story of Eric the Red discovering Greenland. But few realise the true scale of the civilization he forged. The Vikings did not just visit for a few years and leave. They settled. They built churches, constructed farms, raised sheep and cattle, and traded with Europe. Let's draw a comparison to grasp this astonishment. The United States, from the Declaration of Independence in 1776 to the present, has existed for about 250 years. The Viking community in Greenland endured for 500 years. That means they lived here for a period twice as long as American history. They were born, raised, married, and buried their fathers beneath this very soil for 15 generations. They called this home. And then, suddenly, they vanished. Without a last testament, without a trace. Around the mid-15th century, the entire Norse civilization in Greenland, thousands of people, simply evaporated from the face of the earth. When ships from Europe returned in the 18th century, they found only empty houses, ruined barns, and a terrifying silence. What happened? Were they massacred by the natives? Was it a plague? Modern archaeologists and historians have pieced together the shards to paint a tragedy far more grounded in reality. It was a perfect storm of culture, commerce, and climate. First, the brutality of the climate. When the Vikings arrived in 985, Earth was in the medieval warm period. Southern Greenland actually had grass for grazing livestock. But by the 14th century, the global climate shifted abruptly. The Little Ice Age struck. Temperatures plummeted, summers shortened. The grass failed. Cattle and sheep, their primary lifeline, slowly starved and froze to death. Sea ice locked up the ports earlier in the season, severing the route to Europe. The island became completely isolated. Second, a global economic shock. This is a very modern reason that few consider. Why did the Vikings cling to this frozen frontier? Because they sat on a gold mine, walrus ivory. In the Middle Ages, walrus ivory was an incredibly precious material for carving crucifixes, chess sets, and jewellery for European nobility. Greenland was the exclusive ivory exporter for the Catholic world. It was the crude oil of its day. But then, the market crashed. In the 14th century, Portuguese merchants began expanding trade routes to Africa and brought back a superior commodity: cleaner, whiter, and cheaper elephant ivory. Prices for walrus ivory went into freefall. The Viking economy in Greenland went bankrupt. They were like a mining town in the American West after the vein ran dry. There was no money left to buy wheat, iron, or timber from Europe. Third, cultural arrogance. This is perhaps the most painful reason. While the Vikings starved in their cold stone houses right beside them, the Inuit, the Thule people, remained healthy and prosperous. The difference lay in adaptation. The Inuit wore furs, hunted seals, used dog sleds, and lived in incredibly warm igloos. The Vikings, conversely, with their European pride, refused to learn from the heathens. The Vikings stubbornly wore woolen clothes which soak up water and offer poor insulation, insisted on raising cattle instead of hunting whales, and continued building stone churches instead of insulated shelters. They died because they wanted to live like a Norwegian farmer in the heart of the Arctic, rather than living like a true Arctic inhabitant. They died because they refused to change. The final proof of their existence is a wedding. On September 14th, 1408, right here at the ruined Hvalsey Church where we stand, a marriage took place between two young people named Thorstein Olafsson and Sigrid Björnsdotter. Vatican records confirm this event. It was the last voice, the last warmth ever recorded. After that wedding, static, fade to black. No more letters, no ships leaving the harbour. Darkness swallowed everything. Today, standing amidst the ruins of Hvalsey, you feel a haunting contrast. Behind the dead, grey stone walls of the Vikings are the vibrant, colourful wooden houses of modern Greenlanders. Red, blue, yellow, popping bright against the white snow. These modern houses do not try to fight the climate with cold stone. They are built with the terrain heated by modern technology, yet the lifestyle within still preserves ancient survival skills, hunting and respecting the ocean. The Hvalsey ruins stand there as an eternal warning to modern humanity. No matter how strong you are, no matter how civilized, if you fight against nature instead of adapting to it, you will face a grim ending. In Greenland, nature is always the final winner. But the story of harshness does not end in the south. To truly understand the limits of human endurance, we must leave these historical relics to enter the real forbidden zone. A place where even ordinary Greenlanders hesitate to tread. Let us journey to the east and the high north. If you think life in Nuuk or Ilulissat defines isolation, you're mistaken. In Greenland, the places we just visited are still considered crowded, civilized metropolises. The true wild, what is known as the real Arctic, lies on the other side of the island, the east and the high north. Welcome to Ittoqqortoormiit. Don't try to pronounce that name unless you want to twist your tongue, and I find it hard to pronounce correctly too. Just know what it means. Place of big houses. That name is a piece of geographic irony. This is one of the most isolated settlements on the planet. Look at the map. Ittoqqortoormiit sits alone at the edge of the world's largest fjord system, Scoresby Sund. To get here, you cannot simply buy a plane ticket. You must fly to Iceland, catch a special flight to a rough airstrip in Greenland, and then wait for a helicopter to shuttle you into town, if the weather permits. If the fog rolls in, you could be stranded for weeks. Here, the sea remains frozen for 9 months of the year. Supply ships carrying food and heavy cargo from Denmark can only dock twice a year during the short summer. Imagine living in the US and having Amazon deliver only 2 times in 365 days. Did you forget to buy toothpaste or spare car parts in the August shipment? Congratulations, you have to wait until next July. But isolation is not the scariest part. The scariest part is stepping out your front door. In New York or London, you look both ways to dodge traffic. In Ittoqqortoormiit, you look both ways to dodge polar bears. These are not the cute, cuddly bears of Coca-Cola commercials. These are the largest land predators on the planet, weighing up to 700 kilograms and capable of sprinting faster than an Olympic athlete. And more importantly, they are the only animal on Earth that actively hunts humans for food. In this land, the zoo scenario is completely inverted. In a zoo, humans walk free while beasts are kept in cages. In Ittoqqortoormiit, humans are the ones in cages. When night falls or an alarm sounds, people must retreat into fortified houses and lock their doors. And the streets, that is the bears' territory. They stroll between houses, rummage through trash cans, and peer curiously into your bedroom windows. In America, you send your kids to school on yellow buses. Here, the government hires professional hunters to patrol the playground during recess to ensure no bear is stalking the children. On the first day of school, the first lesson is not the alphabet, it is how to spot and flee from a bear. Here, a rifle is not a weapon of aggression or a symbol of violence. It is a basic survival tool, like a wallet or a set of keys. Going to the supermarket for milk? You sling a rifle over your shoulder. Taking out the trash? You better bring the gun. No one wants to become lunch for a starving bear. It is a brutal reality. Humans and bears are competing for every square metre of living space. But if Ittoqqortoormiit is still inhabited, the region above it, the Northeast Greenland National Park, is a completely forbidden zone. This is the largest national park in the world, 100 times the size of Yellowstone, larger than France and Spain combined. But the permanent population is 0. No towns, no Inuit, just ice, rock, blizzards, and deadly silence. Yet amidst that endless frozen desert, humans are moving. They are the most unique, elite, and bizarre military unit in the world, the Sirius Dog Sled Patrol. This is an elite unit of the Danish Navy. Their mission? To patrol and enforce sovereignty over the 16,000-kilometre coastline of this desolate northeast. But they do not move by tank, armoured vehicle, or modern snowmobile. In temperatures dropping to minus 50 degrees Celsius, where engine oil congeals into jelly, electronic batteries die in minutes, and plastic snaps like biscuits, machines are useless. Only one engine works, heart and lungs. The Sirius team moves entirely by dog sled. 12 elite soldiers divided into 6 teams, along with their packs of powerful huskies. They conduct patrols that last for a continuous 26 months. During those 2 years, they are virtually cut off from the civilized world. They sleep in thin tents amidst blizzards where, if you take off your gloves for more than a minute, you risk permanent frostbite. Their iron discipline and survival skills command respect even from US Navy SEALs. Listen to this detail to understand their level of madness. During selection and training, serious members must learn field dentistry. Why? Because if you have a cavity or break a tooth in the wilderness, 1,000 kilometers from the nearest hospital, you cannot call a rescue helicopter. Helicopters cannot fly in winter storms. You must fix it yourself. These soldiers are trained to drill, fill, and even pull each other's teeth right inside their tent by flashlight while the gale screams outside. The bond between soldier and dog here is not master pet. It is a life and death comrade. When night falls, the dogs curl up around the tent to guard against polar bears. If a bear attacks, the dogs are the first line of defense. In return, the soldier tends to the dog's paws and feeds them before feeding himself. In Sirius, the unwritten rule is dogs eat first, humans eat later. Why do they do this? Why maintain such an expensive and dangerous unit in a place where no one lives? It is a story of sovereignty. Under international law, to claim territorial sovereignty, you must prove your physical presence there. And at this end of the world, only the Sirius Patrol and their dogs are tough enough to leave boot prints on the snow, declaring to the world, this land has an owner. East and North Greenland are not for the faint of heart. They are the final frontier of humanity, where nature still holds the power of life and death. But ironically, this seemingly impregnable land, this frozen fortress guarded by fierce bears and blizzards, is under attack by an invisible enemy. An enemy that uses no guns, no bombs, yet is melting the very foundation of this island. It is time we face the final truth. The truth of the dying iceberg and the urgent message it is sending to all of humanity. We have travelled a long journey. We have witnessed the surreal beauty of Disco Bay, the fierce resilience of the Inuit, and the brutal, unforgiving nature of the East. But if we were to depart with nothing but those beautiful memories, we would be missing the most crucial story of all. Let us return to the Greenland ice sheet one last time. If you fly a helicopter over the ice sheet during the summers of recent years, you will see a spectacle that is both mesmerizingly beautiful and heart-stoppingly terrifying. Across the endless canvas of white snow, thousands of turquoise spots appear. These are Meltwater Lakes. From above, they look like giant sapphires. But in reality, they are open wounds. As temperatures rise, the ice surface melts into water. This water does not stay put. It rushes like rivers, carving its way through cracks to form deep vertical shafts known as moulins. Water roars down these holes, drilling thousands of meters to the very bottom, where the ice meets the bedrock. There, the water acts as a lubricant, causing the entire colossal ice mass above to slide faster into the sea. The ice sheet is not just melting from the outside, it is disintegrating from within. And this is where we must talk about the most terrifying number in modern climate science, 7.2 meters. Scientists from NASA and the IPCC have calculated with precision. The Greenland ice sheet contains approximately 2,850,000 cubic kilometers of frozen water. If, and this is an if that is becoming increasingly realistic, this entire block of ice melts and collapses into the ocean, global sea levels will rise by an average of 24 feet. Let me help you visualize what 7 meters of water looks like. Look up at your ceiling. A standard room is usually about 3 meters high. 7 meters means the water would submerge the second floor of the house you're sitting in. You might be sitting in an air-conditioned room in Los Angeles thinking, Greenland is thousands of miles away. That won't happen for a long time. But the truth is, Greenland is not far away. Climatologically speaking, Greenland is right in your backyard. This island acts as Earth's air conditioner. The white colour of the snow and ice has the ability to reflect sunlight, the albedo effect. It bounces heat back into space, keeping the planet cool. But as the ice melts, it exposes dark soil or dark ocean water. This darkness absorbs heat, warming the Earth faster and causing even more ice to melt. It is a deadly feedback loop. Imagine Earth as a refrigerator. You open the door and leave it like that day after day. The motor has to run at full capacity, overheating and eventually burning out. The food inside us will spoil. Greenland is that refrigerator door, and humanity is leaving it wide open. In the last 20 years, the rate of melting in Greenland has quadrupled. In 2019, on a single summer day, the island lost 11 billion tonnes of ice. That amount of water is enough to fill 4.4 million Olympic swimming pools in just 24 hours. The scary part is not that nature is angry. Nature has no emotions. The scary part is that nature is simply following the laws of physics. If we add heat, CO2, ice will melt. Physics does not negotiate, it does not show mercy, and it does not care about economics or national borders. The story of Greenland, therefore, is not a story about a distant island. It is the story of your home. It is the story of your environment. It is the story of the future of children growing up in coastal cities around the world. What happens in the Arctic doesn't stay in the Arctic. It will come knocking at your door in the form of stronger hurricanes, record-breaking heat waves, and rising sea levels. Our air conditioner is breaking down, and no repairman is coming down from space to help us. Only we can save ourselves. Our journey to the end of the world has drawn to a close. We began with curiosity about a deceptive name, traversed roaring glaciers, shuddered at the mysterious disappearance of the Vikings, and worried over the melting tears of a giant ice sheet. But after all is said and done, what does Greenland leave within us? It is not merely a cold, inanimate rock sitting at the edge of the map. Greenland is a great teacher. In a modern world where humans are obsessed with conquering nature, leveling mountains, filling seas, damming rivers, Greenland teaches us a different, humble lesson: interdependence. Here, you cannot defeat nature. You can only listen to its pulse to exist alongside it. The Inuit have survived here for thousands of years, not because they tried to alter the course of the ice, but because they learned to glide across it. They understand that humans are but a tiny part of the ecosystem, not its masters. Greenland does not need us to save it. Earth existed billions of years before we arrived, and will exist long after we are gone. Greenland is merely sending a warning signal so that we can save ourselves. To make us understand that true prosperity does not come from exploiting resources, but from respecting Mother Nature. Greenland, cold on the outside, but warm on the inside. A land that reminds us of the magnificent beauty and the utter fragility of this planet.